So if you remember primary succession, let's see, primary succession is when you're starting from scratch. A volcanic eruption, it's a landslide, a flood, something that removes all the soil. We're going to talk later about soil and how important it is and how long it takes to make it. But if you just have bare rock, that's primary succession. You're starting from scratch. And we went through and we talked about that. You get simple plants like mosses and ferns, and you get the pioneer species. And as all of these are growing, they're producing soil. And once you have soil, you can get on to the plants that need more soil. Lichens don't need any soil. Mosses need just a little bit. And then grasses need less, but trees need a lot of soil. So, and then once you have the plants, the animals can move in. Okay, so that's kind of a mix. There was primary succession in places where the bedrock scoured down, but they were talking about in a lot of places the soil was just covered, and a lot of animals that were buried in the soil survived the blast. And the pocket gophers, which we have around here, by the way, definitely in the mountains. I think there's some down in our area. They helped stir up the soil and make habitat for amphibians and everything. It's really amazing how much it's changed. And I'm going to try, I haven't done this over Zoom before, but I'm going to try to show you on Google Earth. If you haven't played with Google Earth, you should. And one of the things you can do on it is it has historical pictures. So let's take a look. Let's see. Share Google Earth. So all right. So let's look at it in 1980. Well, 1984 is as far back as it goes. All right. So, and you can see it blasted this way. There was it didn't blast straight up, and most of the shock wave actually went in that direction. Let's see. So ground level's a little too low. So it exploded this way. And there were pyroclastic flows and lahars. Lahar is when the, oh, we're way back in some of these. Suddenly you can go back to 1950. Let's see if we can see it at all. Okay, so here's pre-blast. And the resolution's really low because this was 1970. Now we're back to 1984. Okay, so anyway, not that one. You can see that there's very little green, especially on this side. There's Spirit Lake. And here you can see the log mat he was talking about in the video. Trees just were blasted off of the mountain and are floating on this lake. And you'll see as we look at it that the logs actually drift from one side to the other with the wind. It's very interesting. But this is 4 years after the blast. Let's see what we've got here. 1981. Yeah, really low resolution. Okay. So 1984, And then let's look at 2018. You see all the more green all in here and here. What's amazing to me, though, is there's still logs floating on the lake. In 2018, it erupted in 1980. So these logs are still there. And you can see they kind of move. With the wind. If you've got high resolution, you can zoom in enough to actually see that they're trees. This is not really succession. It's just really amazing to me. A huge mat of trees that are, say, 1980, almost, well, they are 1980 to 40 years old, 40-year-old trees floating in the river, in the lake. But you can see if we turn the history off, look at all these shrubs, trees. So this is all 40 years old at the most. From this angle, it only goes back to 1994, but you can see nothing. And now we have green. Some of that's because it's black and white, but you could tell there was no vegetation there. So life comes back. You can see even here on the slope of the mountain, there's green vegetation. Let's see what kind of footage we have here. Not very high resolution. So anyway, succession, and life is good at it. And again, you get the pioneer species. In this case, you had a lot of things that survived under the soil, so they were amazed at how much faster than they would have expected it to come back. See, on the slope, it's still, this was bare rock, and a lot of it still is. But there, not very far from the volcano itself, there's a lot of green. Bushes. So anyway, yeah, especially along the river channels, there's green crawling up the mountain. So succession. And again, you can see the difference from 1984 to 2018. Okay, so let's get back to our PowerPoint. What's the way to that? Okay. This is what we just watched. Yeah. Okay, so secondary succession. And this begins in a place that already has soil and was once the home of living organisms. So forest fire is usually going to be secondary succession. Windstorm, things like that. It occurs faster and has different pioneer species in primary succession. Remember, if you've got bare rock, not many things can live there. But if you've got good soil, just nothing living, there's a lot of different pioneer plants that can just jumpstart it. So like I said, forest fires. And here you see you start with pioneer plants that can grow in soil. And over time, you end up with bigger trees and things like that. Start with weeds, annual weeds, so weeds that are just grow a season. This is after cultivation. So if you cleared an area for farming and then stopped farming, this is the stage you would go through. The softwoods, the pines grow fast. The mature hardwoods take longer to grow, so it takes longer to get that. But so an area that's been cleared for what have you, you can see the timeline here. To get a mature hardwood forest takes 150 years. So this is something we need to keep in mind when we're talking about renewable resources. Trees are renewable. You can cut down trees and within 25 years, you can have a young pine forest. Some of those big enough to harvest for lumber. So that's renewable. An old growth forest that hasn't been cut is not necessarily renewable on a short time period because it takes 150 years to get back to that climax community, if that makes sense. So wood is renewable, old growth forest is not. And so when people want to start lumbering an old growth forest and say, well, it'll grow back. Well, yeah, but it's going to take a century and a half at least. So, okay, and different types you can see there. All right, climax communities. This is a stable group of plants and animals that is the end result of the succession process. It's not, we say end result, but it usually is not totally stable. You'll have trees fall down and you'll have a big bare patch and that will start succession over again. It's not 100% stable, but doesn't always mean big trees. In prairies, no longer how long you wait, you're not going to have a hardwood forest. The soil is such that grasses grow better there than trees. The desert, again, you clear a spot of desert and you can wait 500 years and you're still not going to have a hardwood forest because there's not enough water. Cacti may be the dominant plant in the end of succession. Cacti and creosote bushes and things like that. Maybe a few of our cedars and things, depending on the area. It's the area that it's what ends up after succession is finished and what stays constant over time, relatively constant. So in our nice little graphs, we say hardwood forest, but that's only in places where hardwood forest will grow. So that's all I have. Remember to keep in mind about the test you can take starting during class time on Thursday. We'll have class briefly just to touch base and remind you about the test. You also have the study guide and the gizmo and the video to watch. So keep up with all of that. And that's all I have for you today. So have a good day and I will talk to you on Thursday.
Thank you, Mr. Boyd. You have a good one.
Thank you. You too. Talajna, you have a question?
Question.
Yes.
The test Friday.
Uh-huh.
Is that like for the first hour?
Yeah, what we decided is I will open it up during first hour on Thursday, and then you have until Friday at midnight to finish it.
Okay.
They're going to be timed, so make sure you can't work on it the whole time from Thursday during class till Friday. Just make sure you have any time in that time period you have a swath of time that it's like 45 minutes for the one and 30 for the other, something like that. Anytime you have that time, that chunk of time, you can do it.
Okay.
All right. Have a good day.
Have a good day.